Hey everyone, Joe from Ablenet here today to talk to you about iOS 7 and a brand new accessibility feature called Switch Control. So with Switch Control, what you're able to do is, with one or multiple switches, control a majority of the iDevice. This is pretty cool, pretty easy to set up as well. So today what I want to do is show you how to set up a single switch as well as how to configure that switch with automatic scanning. So the first thing we're going to do today is we're going to go into our settings menu, and then we're going to go into accessibility, and we're going to set up our accessibility shortcut. So if you go all the way to the bottom, you're going to see accessibility shortcut. What you'll notice is that you do have multiple options here. The one we want to select is switch control. We prefer to only have switch control on. We have seen some people with switch control on that get locked out of their iDevice because they've set up a screen switch and they haven't been able to turn switch control off. So with the accessibility shortcut, you're able to triple click your home button and turn switch control off. So next thing we want to do is get our switch paired up with our device. Today we're going to use the new Ablenet Bluetooth switch, and this uses Bluetooth to connect to the device. So we're going to go into the Bluetooth menu, turn Bluetooth on if it's not already on, and you're going to see a variety of devices that are available around me here. So there's Bluetooth. We're going to select Bluetooth, and in a second here it should say connected. There we go. So now we know our switch is paired with our iDevice. Now what we need to do is set up our switch within switch control and configure the settings for it. So we're going to go back to general. We're going to select accessibility, and we're going to go all the way to the bottom again and select switch control. So the first thing we want to do is set up Bluetooth as a switch. So you're going to select switches, add new switch, and you see we have three options here. Today we're going to use external because we're using a Bluetooth switch. Now you're going to see it's going to ask me to activate my switch. I'm going to go ahead and do so. And when you activate your switch, it asks you to give it a name. We recommend that you give it a very intuitive name because you can set up multiple switches with your iDevice. So we're just going to call this one white. Then we're going to do save. Now what you see here, you can give different actions to each switch. For this particular one, because iOS 7 is going to do all the scanning for us automatically, we're just going to have it do select item. So we have that. As you can see here, we now have our white switch with select item. If you were to hit edit, you can delete switches. You can also add more switches if you need. So now we're going to go back to the switch control settings menu. I'm going to walk you through some of these settings. The first thing you're going to want to do, if it's not already on, turn auto scanning on. Without this on, iOS 7 will not scan for you. Next thing we want to do here is change our auto scan time. So I'm going to go into auto scan time. As you'll see here, we can go up, we can go down in very small increments of seconds. Now what auto scan time is, this is how quickly or slowly the cursor is going to move across your screen from item to item. So this is really going to depend on the user's capabilities and what they're comfortable with. So we'll just go ahead and leave it at 1.5 seconds for this demonstration. The next thing we're going to go into is loops. Now loops is basically each time a scan goes through the screen, it'll loop around from top to bottom. Once it gets to the bottom and there's no more selections, it'll go right back to the top. So this is the number of times that loop will happen. So once again, this will depend on what the user really needs to be successful with the device. For this particular demonstration, we'll just leave it on 4 for now. The next thing here that we're going to talk about is an optional setting. It's called Auto Tab. We like it because out of the box, iOS 7, when you go to select an item, it brings up a menu of options. You then have to click a second time to select that item. When you turn Auto Tap on, your first time you click, it selects the item. If you want to be presented with the menu of options, you just double click within a specified amount of seconds. Right here is where you specify those seconds. Once again, simply goes up and down. So we'll just keep it at 1 second for our double click to bring up the menu. Next up here, we're going to talk about, we do have some audio effects that we can implement here. So the first one's called sound effects, and what happens here when this is on, when you move from item to item with the scan, it will make a clicking sound, so auditory feedback. We also have speech. This is for those of you that are familiar with VoiceOver. It'll read back whatever item you're on. So if you're on iBooks, it'll read back iBooks to let you know what item you're on. This does not work for all items, but a majority of them it should work for. So next here you'll see we have group items selected. What this does when it's scanning, it'll actually group items to give you kind of row column scanning throughout your screen. Once you select a group of items, your scan will go through that group and you can select an item within that group. This really helps speed up the scanning process. Under visual here, you'll see we have large cursor selected. So for our scan, this will actually increase the border size of the scan itself. Makes it a little bit easier to see on the screen. Next up here we have cursor color. You do have 5 options, so depending on what your background is, you can select a color that'll make it a little bit easier to see. So now that I've shown you some of the basic settings of switch control, we're going to go back up to the top and we're going to turn switch control on. You could also triple click your home button. So as you see here, the scan has started. So I'm going to go ahead and take you guys back to the home screen here and give you a quick demonstration of what this looks like scanning through the iDevice. So what you see first is the vertical scan. I'm going to let it go all the way through. And so I'm going to select the second row with a single click. And then when we get to the Notes app, I'm going to single click again, and it goes right into the app. So now as it's scanning through the Notes app, I'm just going to double click, and it brings up the menu I was talking about. So I single click again, and it goes back home. Same thing on this menu, single click. Now as we're going across, when we get to the Notes app, double click, and it brings up the menu again. So as you can see, a single switch with auto scanning, it's pretty straightforward. There are additional settings that I did not cover in this tutorial, but play around with it. You guys will get used to it. It's a pretty cool feature.